to see a lot of you. Very nice to meet some new faces. Excited to be a part of this, Jake. Thank you so much for putting this all together and inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we get to share a mic. You want to know how you can guarantee that you don't interrupt each other for a conversation? Have one microphone. So a little bit of that. Jesse, so we heard a little bit about what you did before, playing pro ball for almost a decade and a half, and a little bit about what you're up to now. But I want to just hear from you about some of your story, what it was like growing up here, and then, probably a dream to skip out on Oregon. You could have gone and played in Oregon, but you did not. You went to the Phils in the first round. So I want to hear a little bit more about what that journey was like in the early days and the, kind of transition into becoming a professional pitcher.
Yeah, so I'm not going to bore you guys with too much of like my T-ball stories, but so I was drafted out of high school by the Phillies in the first round in 2010, which keeps getting further and further away. But I was drafted on June 7th, graduated high school on June 9th, and was playing professional baseball on June 10th. So I immediately went down to Florida, and the first 2 weeks of being a rookie ball player in Philly, they made me bat boy every game. Which was quite a humbling but also awesome experience that I really appreciated, and I hope they're still doing that to first round picks now.
Yeah, but you ended up having a few impressive days after being bat boy. But really, the story that we're going to focus on today is not about being an athlete, because you played for a bunch of teams. You had a really interesting career injury-wise. I mean, hail-induced concussion, Tommy John surgery. You saw it all. You played for a bunch of teams. And how many people were a former athlete in any regard at all? Raise your hand if you're a former athlete. Yeah, huge majority of the room. Wow, it's incredible, like probably 75%. And we hear these stories all the time. So, I'm one half of SBL. Where's Justin Tichenel, my co-founder? Justin, where are you? He's actually the athlete. So he played football in Gettysburg. I was not good enough of a lacrosse player to play at Delaware. But we hear so many stories about life after sports, whether you were an elite high school athlete and decided not to play in college. And the worst is actually, pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into a college team, and then you have life after that. Not to mention playing professional ball for 14 years and then pivoting. So it's not super focused on the athlete side, but there's, I think, a few lessons from like pivoting, life after sports, the art of the pivot. Love to hear any thoughts about that from you, Jesse.
Yeah, look, so one of the things that I wasn't really made aware of when I got drafted out of high school is that I wasn't going to college, which I didn't realize how important that might be down the road. So when I got done playing in 2023 and had a good 14 years, enjoyed the run, I left it going like, man, I don't know who I am anymore, right? And there's a giant hole that gets left in your personality in anybody who has a thing that they feel really attached to, right? When I was 5 years old, I was playing T-ball. Maybe I'm going to bore you guys with some T-ball stories. And I realized, like, this is who I am as a 5-year-old. I was like, I'm going to play in the major leagues. I had no reason to believe that other than just self-determination. And when it was gone, there was a big hole. And I think the best advice I was ever given after I left was, don't try to replace it with one thing, right? You're never going to replace it with one thing. But try to find all the bits and pieces of baseball that you loved and replace them with all the things that are now open to you, now that I have just freed this entire part of my brain that was preoccupied with baseball for as long as I've been alive. So I don't remember what your question was.
You answered it.
But what I'll say is the art of the pivot. I took pen to paper. I wrote down, what are the skills I learned aside from throwing a slider on the corner most of the time, some of the time, and how can I apply them to the business world? I don't have a college degree, I don't have an MBA, but what are the value adds that I can drive uniquely given my unique background? So the first job I took was running strategic partnerships for a health and wellness company funded by and created by Phil Mickelson. What are the unique value adds that I can bring there? This is a space that I feel comfortable in, and it's somewhere that I can open up doors and I can learn. So it's a small team, and I was doing influencer deals, athlete deals, selling to teams, selling to gyms, getting us from strictly online to retail, and it was a great landing place and just the opportunity to get on the field. My father-in-law is back there. He was a great mentor to me, and he said, just get on the field and see what happens. And so that translated really well.
That's great. Shout out to Jim Morrissey from LL Funds. Love that. And Annie, your fantastic wife here. That's great. Really appreciate those lessons from the art of the pivot. I think there's a book about that. I need to memorize who that author is, but really appreciate that. And now let's really talk about the most interesting things for us. So what Justin and I have done in doing 50 events in 12 cities, 11 or 12 cities, we meet investors everywhere we go, and for a while, who's on the investor side here today? There's like 3, 4, 5 of you. You probably don't want to raise your hands, but I'm gonna make you. Andre's like, we've hung on to all these investor relationships, and we didn't really know what to do with you guys for a while, but everybody wants to meet you at events, be featured on a podcast. This is technically a live podcast episode, by the way. We've never done this before. And then we've just like held on to the relationships with all of you, and then we realized that like you talk to enough founders, and you guys can find a way to meet all these investors, but we've kind of like pulled together all these investor relationships, and really you guys want to meet each other is what we discovered. That was my biggest epiphany over the last 18 months. And now you guys are sending us our deals, and we think we're headed in a venture capital direction. That's what we believe is going to happen with SBL, to be honest. And so that's why we want to learn from you, feature you, and hear about your story. So let's talk about October Ventures now. So your partner, which is Jesse's fund, your partner Jay Query and you guys are an awesome team. I really think you guys are similar to me and Justin. One's the athlete, that's you. The other one's, writing some things down on a paper. Jay's a really smart, cool guy. Love to hear about like the background story of October Ventures, the portcos that you guys have now, the inspiration around how you look at companies, things like this. Tell us about October Ventures.
Yeah. So my partner, who's not here, he's in Boston. He was one of the first employees at Carta. He helped build them, and he was there for 10 years. So his unique background, my unique background. We've been best friends since kindergarten. We were born in the same hospital on the same day, October 22nd, 1991, which is why we're called October Ventures, not a reference to baseball, even though most people think that it is. So when I was stepping away from my job working at that health and wellness company, I wanted to start doing more on the investing side. I wanted to impact more companies strategically. I wanted to impact more athletes and allow them to kind of open up those same doors that I opened up for this company, but now we can do it at a broader scale and we can impact more and more people. So my partner was stepping away from his job with Carta, and he was like, we should do deal-by-deal SPVs. And I was like, awesome. SUVs like cars or SPFs? Like, you want to sell sunscreen? Or like, what are we doing here? And he was like, no, SPVs, special purpose vehicles. And I was like, all right, cool. Teach me everything you know. And I was like, okay. And we literally just sat in a room for hours and hours and hours, and he just kind of walked me through exactly how we would do this, what it means to go out and raise money, how to raise money, what we're looking for in companies. And he basically just took me to school. And I realized with October Ventures, all I'm trying to do is I'm just treating myself like patient zero. What are the things that I'm interested in, and how do I create all these same access points for the athletes behind me? Because if I'm really interested in them, there's probably athletes who are interested in them as well. So our entire thesis was centered around, let's go out and find early stage sports tech companies. Let's leverage our network. Let's lower the barrier to entry for private investment opportunities. And whether you put in 5K or you put in 100K, every athlete who we've worked with has really wanted to impact these companies, regardless of the check size. And so we want to invest in companies that we feel really attached to because our network feels really attached to them as well. So we've built a big advisory board. We've now got a good group of athletes that we work with. We largely invest pre-seed to Series A, and we work with a bunch of really cool companies across sports tech, health, wellness, human performance, entertainment. You name it, we're looking at those companies.
Yeah, it's great. Speaking of advisory board, did Benjamin Kenyon, is he still here? I think one of your advisors was just sitting right there. I think he might have left. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, he ran away. Yeah, as soon as the attention. Well, he knew I was going to shout him out, so he ran away. That's great. And one of the things that I'm always curious about is how funds pick founders. What can founders be doing to stand out and get more attention and make sure that, generally you invest in about 1% of the things you see. It's like an industry standard. Investors invest in 1% of the deals they see. So it's kind of like mind-blowing. Of 100 decks, you're trying to be that one that they're actually going to cut a check for. But what you got to do is get the email to be open and get to that first meeting and get to usually like 2 or 3 meetings. So one of the things that stood out in our planning for this discussion is that what you and Jay really look for is, can that founder not only tell the story around the company, but are you telling the right story? This is super important. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you guys look for that right story and how that founder is pitching their company.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning this as well, and I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome sitting up here, if I'm being honest. And a piece of advice that I was given is anytime you feel that, just run towards it. So I'm going to try to lean into this, but this is my first time ever doing anything like this. Is not a left-handed pitcher, so this is, bear with me here.
Let's hear it one more time for Jesse, guys. Yeah.
So my deal flow CRM now is well over 200 companies that I've talked to personally and built a relationship with the founders and gotten to know. And I've realized in the time that I've been doing this, which is, I'll be honest, a pretty short amount of time, but there's a huge similarity between founders and athletes. And that correlation and that belief in yourself is something that I really try to understand and build a relationship. That's the common ground where I try to start from, because I know that they have a belief in themselves, and there's probably a bunch of people telling them that they can't do it. And I had the same thing as a kid. And so many athletes can relate to that, and I think so many founders can too. So the first step is building that relationship. Now, when it comes to why or how do we pick a founder, I think a decent amount of it is oftentimes a founder isn't, I'm not necessarily picking a founder is showing me, they're proving to me that I should pick them. They're forcing me to. I mean, I think a good example is actually this company here that we invested in. This is a company called Python, if people are familiar. I know Andre's familiar. And it's a wearable device, it measures your reaction time, but it's the kind of thing you kind of need to experience in order to really understand it. And I talked to the founder one time on the phone, and he said, meet me at 10 a.m. at 30th Street Station tomorrow. And I was like, okay. I thought he was in DC. It turns out he was in Boston. He took the 5 a.m. train. He sat with me for 2 hours at 30th Street. He onboarded me onto the technology, and he told me how much it meant to him. He told me about how he lost his mom to ALS, and he created a device that measures cognitive decline, cognitive function, and will track and will be the first thing to track your cognitive decline for things like ALS or dementia. And his story really spoke to me, and I could tell that this was coming from a place that was very real to him. And then he got right back on the train and went back home. And him and I have been very close ever since, and that company is also doing very, very well. And I think a lot of it is from where it comes from and his story.
Yeah, storytelling is so critical. I'm really glad you could add that. I also love to ask fundraising advice, but I don't know if we really need to do that, because that's really your biggest fundraising advice is storytelling. So grand finale question, I'd love to just hear, what is exciting to you about the sports business market? What is exciting to you about the sports business market? What are the things that you and Jay are looking for? What excites you? What do you think if you were to encourage the SBL community to just take a second look at certain things that you guys are taking a second look at? Love to hear about those things before we close this thing down. And we are going to do Q&A here tonight, guys, so get your questions ready.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been said a lot, but obviously the whole asset class there's a lot of money flowing into it. And for us, my thesis was originally centered around how do we invest in as many sports tech companies as we can, but largely we broadened that up into really just what can we put our thumb on the scale for, and what are we passionate about? What are the companies that not only are we excited to invest in, but our network is excited to help and excited to accelerate. So when it comes to the sports business, you guys know, it's called sports business leaders. So I'm not telling you anything that you don't know about the asset class. But when it comes to what we're looking for and what excites me, it's companies that my advisors, myself, my partner, get up every day with the intention of how do we best help these companies and how do we help them grow.
Fantastic. Let's hear it one more time for Jesse Biddle, guys. Thank you so much. Who has a question? We're not going to take many, but who has a question? Wow, no questions. That is garbage. Who's got a question for real? Yeah, let's get up here, Jess. Come on up here. I wish I had a wireless microphone that I could walk out to you. Here for Jessica Brodsky from Player Data, Chief Commercial Officer at Player Data. Thanks, Jess. Yeah.
Thanks for the intro. Go stand over here, sorry.
Yeah,
Jesse, can you tell us a story about how you've helped some of your founders in your portco? What is your advisory board doing, and how do you decide who that is?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's probably a couple ways that I could point to. ones that are probably that I can. So I guess the one that I can talk about the most. So the first company we invested in is called SportFX, and SportFX is a biomechanics assessment app on your phone, right? So it's go-to-market was originally it's just pitching and hitting, which obviously speaks to me. It's commercializing elite technology at $15 a month. I try to invest with the idea of will it help 30-year-old Jesse and will it help 12-year-old Jesse? If the answer is yes to both of those, then that's something I'm interested in. That company needed to validate their data and needed to build out, like they needed to prove that what they were doing was working, and they needed to talk to people in the biomechanics space. I happened to be a groomsman at a wedding the weekend they texted me with the head biomechanics guy for the Phillies who took a call and now works for the company. So there's just little ways that we can provide really unique avenues just given our background and track record.
Thanks for that. If you guys are connected to Boston at all, Jess is trying to meet more people in Boston, so go chat with her tonight. We're also doing an event there next week, so let us know if you know any people. Who else has a question for Jesse? I'd love to have 3 questions. Who's got our second question? Yeah, let's get up here, Keith Klein. I don't have a wireless mic, so you have to come to us. Let's hear it for Keith Klein from Venture Fizz in Boston, who lives in Westchester. You have to explain this to people all the time, right?
I do, yes. So yeah, I run a website called Venture Fizz that supports the Boston tech ecosystem. I'm familiar with the company that you invested in, which is a great company.
Yeah.
So AI is everywhere, right? So what are some of the interesting use cases that you've seen for startups applying AI in the sports industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't liken myself an AI expert, and I do try to build we've tried to build an advisory centered around AI experts who can help answer this question probably better than I can.
He's back. You
Oh.
got a shout out, you missed it.
Okay. Oh yeah, Ben's back. Oh yeah, Ben's my AI expert now. I think the really interesting versions of AI that we've invested in personally. I think like our second portfolio company called Oro. So Oro takes, it helps expedite PT processes using a wearable device. And the reason why I got excited about it was all of my PTs in the baseball world have purchased the device and are utilizing it. And I know a lot of PTs because I've been hurt so many times. As Jake referenced, I was in a hailstorm and got a concussion. I missed an entire season because of it. It's pretty sweet. It's like when Happy Gilmore brags about how he's the only guy to ever take his cleat off and try to stab somebody. I'm like the only guy to ever get in a hailstorm concussion accident. And so I know a lot of PTs, but expediting PT process was a really interesting use case of AI. So their algorithm is proprietary and it utilizes the wearable muscle feedback that they get. I also am a little bit wary of the word AI in the sports space, and I want to make sure that all companies that we talk to are solving problems that actually exist rather than problems that they think exist. And so that's where people like my advisor Ben here, who was the head of performance for the Sixers, shout out Ben, go Sixers, sort of these days. You call up a guy like Ben, you say, hey Ben, this is a company that's trying to solve a problem in the basketball space utilizing AI. Is that a problem that you would pay to solve? And the answer oftentimes is, well, not really, or we actually already have solved it, or every team has a proprietary thing. So anyway, that's sort of a long answer, but yeah.
Resident AI expert Benjamin Kenyon. Well, that one last question. Who's got one more question for Jesse before we take it home? Let's get up here, Brendan McBride. Love to have a question from you. Brendan McBride, Chief Medical Officer from OnRise. Welcome. Let's hear it for Brenda, everybody. It helps. It's a fun job to MC an event if you know everyone in the crowd. I'll tell you what, it's a good time. Thanks for coming up, Brenda.
I
problem.
wish we could walk it out.
I know, it would be nice. I'm just curious as how your experience as an athlete shapes the way you look at investments and founders.
We scrubbed that question off, so it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So how does my background as an athlete, how do I think that it shapes the way I interact with the investments and the founders? I think it could probably be summed up by by one of our early on advisors he started kind of hosting almost like fireside chats with a bunch of athletes in our network, and he sat with a bunch of different ones, and we had all these different calls, and he was like, one of the things that I keep coming back to when I talk to all of your athletes and all of the people in your network who play sports is that they're all very coachable. And they all want to learn, and they're excited about being bad at something. They're excited about not knowing something because it's just an opportunity to be coached. It's an opportunity to learn. So I think that that's one of the things that I really look for when I interact with either founders or athletes that I might want to bring into our network, or other VCs that I would want to co-invest alongside. Shout out Matt. And I think that there's just if there's a mutual respect and an excitement about wanting to learn, I think that oftentimes is a really good place to build a relationship.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Thank you again to our partners and sponsors, Moondial Partners, Crooked Tea. Let's hear it for Fama, everybody. Thank you for being here. Park Avenue Worldwide. Go talk to Chelsea and Brianna tonight, guys. Thank you so much. I forgot to acknowledge Sierra Pierce from the NFL is here. Thank you for being here. And JKJ. Where's our crew from JKJ? I forgot to shout you guys out. One of our sponsors for last year, and probably for this year as well. Thank you for being here. Guys, enjoy your time tonight. Thanks again for coming. Have a good time. Cheers.